Hello, I'm Stephen Alltop, Music Director and Conductor of the Champaign-Urbana Symphony Orchestra, and I'm delighted to be here with my very longtime and dear friend, John Hagstrom, longtime member of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. How many years is it with the CSO?
I'm in my 28th season.
28th?
Yes.
I see.
I started when I was 3.
So you're finally 31 years old. Congratulations.
I know, it's hard to believe.
You know, you didn't look 3 years old when I first met you.
I know, it's true.
Because we first met at the Eastman School of Music.
Yep.
Where we were both students. I remember something about orientation and a possible egg toss. Do you?
That's right. You won the egg toss. They had a whole thing. They took us all outside to get to know each other.
To get to know each other.
And you start with the egg toss close, and then as we got farther and farther apart, and
farther,
eventually the egg would break, and then there was only one couple left, and it was you who won.
Yes, I remember that. You got to have soft hands.
Yeah.
Soft hands bringing it in and so forth. Listen, you were just sharing with me something absolutely marvelous about your association with the Krannert Center, because you're an Illinois guy.
That's right.
Yeah, you grew up in Elmhurst, and so please share that story.
Well, I grew up in the Elmhurst Public School music program, and my parents weren't professional musicians. I was just some kid who came up through the school music program. And so the tradition at that time was for the kids to be encouraged to go to a summer camp because it helps the program be better. And so in the summer of 1979, we'd saved up enough money, I think it was $210 for 2 weeks to go to the summer camp at U of I. And so I had my little starter cornet and went down and it turns out I played pretty well and was second chair in the top band of this camp, and it was really I'd had braces, so that for a trumpet player to have braces, it's really debilitating. So I'd gotten the braces off, and you can suddenly play high again and all that. And so I was at this camp, and it was so inspiring. Anybody who's ever been to the summer program at U of I, it changes your life, and it did mine. And of course, no bigger moment than sitting on the Krannert stage, hearing that sound, and hearing that your sort of less than great school band was eclipsed by far by the quality of the camp, which was playing every day, and they made a record, and I just remember getting the sort of hope in my heart for the first time, like just maybe I could play the cornet or the trumpet. All we had were cornets, but in my heart I wanted to be a trumpet player. And this was the first time on that stage playing with that band that I started to form a dream to become a musician. And so every time the CSO is there, I never forget that feeling of kind of the sort of epiphany of hope that a child starts to have.
That's a wonderful story, and how beautiful that you come back to play with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and now to be a soloist. With the Champaign-Urbana Symphony Orchestra.
It's a great honor to work with you, and your great accomplishment is fantastic.
Well, we've had that pleasure a number of times. It's been my honor to have John as a soloist on many occasions, and we have performed recitals together, and we just love, spending time together. It's always a lot of fun. So this concerto that you're playing is one of the more brilliant I guess trumpets tend to have brilliant concertos, but this one in particular, by Alexander Arutunian, an Armenian composer, really is a showpiece.
Yes, it really is. It was written in 1950 when Arutunian was just 30 years old, and it was written for a famous trumpet soloist who at that time was still sort of a virtuoso prodigy, Timothy Duckschitzer, and he had been the first trumpet of the Bolshoi Theater Orchestra. And he recorded this piece in 1951, very famous recording, which really catapulted this from a brand new piece to immediately becoming a staple of the trumpet repertoire. And in fact, I played this piece as my audition for Eastman, as it turns out. So
wow.
There's another.
We don't need to say which date that was. I don't see any need for that. Do you?
It was over 40 years ago.
Oh my heavens, that doesn't seem possible. I was 3. I was 3. No, I was 5.
Okay.
That's right, because I was 2 years ahead, right?
You're 2 years ahead.
That's right. Well, and you're going to also be part of a world premiere of a work that's been especially written for this concert. In this concert, we are celebrating the life of Paul Vermel, a former music director for some 20 years of the Champaign-Urbana Symphony Orchestra. Paul was also on the conducting faculty at the University of Illinois, and a really respected conductor and teacher. I had the pleasure of studying with Paul as a conducting fellow at the Aspen Music Festival, and that was really an important summer. 9 weeks immersed in conducting, gaining his deep knowledge of the pieces we studied and the repertoire in general, and sort of enjoying his somewhat wry sense of humor. And so this concert has been constructed around that idea. But because John is with us, and because the brass instruments have such an important role on this concert, another longtime friend of mine, Terry Everson, a very fine trumpet player from the Boston area, in his own right plays frequently with the Boston Symphony Orchestra and so forth, and a fine composer, has written a fanfare called Festival Fanfare with a solo trumpet part for John and all the other brass members of our orchestra, and we're hoping to be joined by some other brass members from the community as well. And he has very cleverly worked in themes from the rest of the pieces of the concert. He has even worked in a musical sequence that corresponds to the numbers of Paul Vermel's February birthday. So if you want to hear more about that, you should definitely come and hear the world premiere, which we will do on the second half of this program. But no rest for the weary, right? You play the Arutiunian concerto, and you're right back on the second half, and you're going to play this fanfare.
Yeah, well, it's a great honor to be in part of this. And of course, Terry Everson is, make no mistake, one of the best trumpet players ever. He's a phenomenal musician and accomplished instrumentalist. And so it's my honor to be associated with him in any way and to play this for you and for the community.
And the rest of this program includes music that Paul Vermel conducted. I believe he also conducted the Arutunian concerto. But we begin with the Brahms variations on a theme of Joseph Haydn, as it's called, a very famous chorale tune. And this was Brahms' first orchestral work, and it's already a work of complete mastery. You could spend hours and hours tracing the wonderful construction and craft that Brahms uses, taking the motives of the chorale and making them as the foundation for all of these variations that sound so different. You don't have to know anything about these points of genius behind the construction, but the way he does it in each of the variations is quite remarkable, and yet the variations you can also just simply enjoy because they're so beautiful and compelling. So that's a real masterpiece. And then, as a memorial to Paul, we're playing a beautiful piece by Puccini for strings only. Give our brass a little break before their big workout. And that is called I Crisantemi, the Chrysanthemums. Puccini composed this in one night when a friend of his, the Duke of Savoy, had passed away. And it has that sort of soulful cantabile aspect of Puccini's musical language, and is really contemplative, but it shows what a good composer he was in any medium, including purely instrumental. Then we have the Arutunian, which will be such a pleasure. It's a piece that has a lot of really rhythmically driving passages, but also some passages of great lyricism,
yes,
and a pretty wonderful cadenza too.
Yes, it's all there, and that's you. If you've never heard it before, you'll immediately see why it's become so popular.
Yes, that is very true. Then intermission and the premiere of the fanfare, and then a work I'm guessing you've probably played with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, the Symphonic Metamorphosis on themes of Karl Maria von Weber by Paul Hindemith. You played it.
Years ago.
Years ago.
Yeah.
I remember it was a bit popular when I was in high school as a transcription.
Right, and
for band.
I played it that way too.
Sure.
As a
And
matter of
that's
fact, John Painter made a very famous transcription, the former band director at
Righto.
Northwestern.
right, the longtime director of bands at Northwestern University where I teach. And I'm sure that's how I first got to know the music, was in the band transcription. And Hindemith was a great composer. Again, amazing craft. And he takes these themes by Weber and gives them all of these wonderful colors in the orchestra with the percussion, but the brass really have the most prominent role, and the woodwinds as well. But the last time I did this piece was a few years ago, and I immediately thought of the sonority and acoustics of the Krannert Center, the Foellinger Great Hall. And I just thought, oh, I can't wait to do this piece in that acoustic. Maybe you'll come out and play. Who knows?
Well, it could happen.
It could happen. You also might be pretty tired by that point.
Yeah.
Or maybe you'll take a busman's holiday and just sit out in the audience. And
That's the best idea you've had.
well, it's true. When I go out in the hall and listen to the orchestra and get a sense of how our audience experiences it, it's very different from how I hear it on the podium. I'm not at the best seat in the house. They are. And you get to hear the full richness and sort of stereophonic effect of that amazing acoustic that we're so lucky to have.
Fantastic. And the Chicago Symphony recorded in Krannert with Schroeder
Exactly.
and Schulte, many of the great recordings.
Yeah, the Beethoven symphonies, is that right?
A few of the Bruckner symphonies on the
And,
Decca level.
oh wow, and Bruckner.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was a favorite then of Schulte and the orchestra. Well, you can just hardly do any better for orchestral sound. And it's been really an interesting journey for me as music director to have a chance to work with the orchestra's sound over now a decade, and working with our wonderful musicians to develop it in that great hall. So that's a pretty nice gift. Yeah, John, we're so looking forward to next week,
It's a pleasure.
as always, and we look forward to seeing you. Our concert is on Saturday night, April 20th at 7:30 p.m. You can go to cusymphony.org for tickets or more information, but it should be a pretty fun way to end a season.
Great.
Hope to see you there.